Hey, everybody. This is Jack from the Soul Patch Podcast. I have a quick message for you before we start the show. If you're living and working in South Korea, or you just have a Korea-related experience that you would like to share, please come on the show and be our guest. We'd love to have you. You can contact us at podcast@thesoulpatch.com. That's podcast@thesoulpatch.com. Send us an email. We'll have you on the show. It'll be a blast. Now it's time for the show. Welcome to the Soul Patch Podcast, the podcast where three American expats explore different topics related to living and working in South Korea. With a combined 45 years of living experience in Asia, there are plenty of stories to tell. So, pop in your headphones and make yourself comfortable. It's time for the Soul Patch Podcast.
My tainted perception distorts, my true meaning is blurred. I am lost to the echoes.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Patch. We're here with teacher Sean. Sean is a university teacher here in South Korea, but he's also a man who wears many hats. He's an urban farmer and a avid biker. So Sean, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Sean, when did you come to Korea for the first time?
I first arrived in Korea in 1996, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, maybe my 30th anniversary coming up in a few years if I'm still here. I arrived in Busan in 96 and spent a couple years there. And then every subsequent year or two, I was moving my way up to the peninsula and finally in Seoul here.
Yeah. What, like in 96, like what was the, like, how did you find a job in Korea in 96? Like what was the, did they have the internet back then? No, I'm just kidding.
Just started actually in 96. And actually I had no clue about ESL and any of the community way back then. It was just happenstance. I used to work in the commercial diving industry in Louisiana in the Gulf of Mexico. And one of my friends there moved to Seattle and said, anyone want to go with, you can come and we'll room together when we look for a job. And so I went with him to Seattle. In the first 6 months of living in Seattle, I couldn't find a full-time job. And just looking in the newspaper every day, I found an ad that was, 5 centimeters long that just said, teach English in Korea, BA required. And that was my only criteria, as I wanted to use my degree for my next job. So away I went. Yeah, it was
nice. I might want to talk to you about diving in Korea later. That's one of my hobbies, but we can save that for another time.
I thought you were from Chicago. Is that right, Sean? Are you from?
That's true. Okay. Yeah, I grew up nearby Chicago, about an hour away, and went to the university in Illinois there. But just doing different work. In high school, my family mostly landscaped, and I think that's where my connection to a little bit of nature. We're hunters and landscapers. Mm-hmm. And from there, just moving to different, interesting things as a young man and finding myself in Louisiana. Yeah.
Yeah. And for those that, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but Sean and I we know each other. We were classmates in graduate school. And I know that you're, I guess the right word is, like a well-traveled person, because you just talking about in the United States, you were in Louisiana, you went to Seattle. You also spent some time in the Peace Corps, if I'm not mistaken.
That's true. So my first 2 years in Busan, and then I worked in Cheongju the next year. And then I also served, or actually taught, in Gyeongju University in Gyeongju, the ancient capital here. And it was then that I applied for Peace Corps and was offered a time in Uzbekistan. I was invited to go serve in Uzbekistan, but that was halfway through my contract in Gyeongju University. And I told the Peace Corps I couldn't go at this time. And so they sent me another invitation to the Republic of Georgia. And that's where I ended up teaching.
Oh, interesting.
How long were you there?
The Peace Corps service is about 2 years. So I was there from 2001 to 2003. And just teaching in a public school system there and also helping out at the university. So,
what were you teaching?
Generally, it was ESL. So different from the Korean situation, Georgia, well, especially the Peace Corps, they wanted us to have a counterpart. So I taught in a public school with a Georgian teacher, and we taught all the kids that came through our classroom. And it was generally me there inputting different activities, new activities that maybe they weren't using before, trying to be more communicative in this way, right?
So you were doing a little bit of like programming as well, not just like running the class, but trying to actually contribute to the program.
Right. So yeah, and it was fortunate for me and many of my other Peace Corps fellows, we had good counterparts that said, okay, how do we want to improve, but we don't know the latest research. So just help us out with building a better curriculum and a better program. And, step by step, we all of us don't know everything. So it was really helpful to have other teachers working with us. Yeah.
How did your time in Korea help you with your teaching in Georgia? Like, was that really helpful to just kind of like, figure things out? You just kind of, get some experience
in the field finally.
Yeah. Again, fortunate to have a decent Hagwon director. That's where I worked in Busan in a Hagwon. And my director, pretty much invisible, but at least he had some criteria for us to teach. And so we, as a sort of a new teacher in ESL, I was really grasping at straws of, how do I do this?
Right.
And they helped me with that, like present, practice, and production kind of stuff. And then from there, just helping me understand what's expected between teachers and students, and just getting the whole grasp of classroom manners and things. And then I actually went to a CELTA program that helped me. So I did a CELTA certificate in San Francisco before moving on into the Peace Corps. So, yeah.
This is just a tiny little bit of a diversion, but how different was it back in '96 to now? Like as far as like students are concerned, and the kind of I don't know, like what was the kind of teaching philosophy that was kind of prominent back then?
I think it was more not as much rote in Korea, not rote memorization so much. When I think back at that time, they wanted the students to go through some of the scripts and memorize them, but that wasn't the entire idea in the classroom. This thing of, actually I misstated earlier, but I guess it's present, we present them with some ideas and then have them practice in rote, repeating after me kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. and then letting them go to produce by themselves. So present, practice, and production kind of method. That was, as far as I knew, that was quite big back then. And just teaching wise, that was something that I don't do so much anymore, especially at the university level. These days it's more communicative approach,
right?
And content based. Read this newspaper and summarize it, and we're going to talk about vocabulary and ideas there.
Yeah, I think in a shorter timeline, I think the three of us, I know from working together, especially with Kevin, we work on the same campus and have to share the same office. I think we went through a similar arc in a more recent time period. I think even just like 13 years ago, mm-hmm. we also were kind of in the former like structure and then move towards production. Do you think the reason for that is due to an evolution in the like general teaching philosophy, your teaching philosophy, or do you think it's reflective of the skill of the students? Like we often wonder about, hey, is it just me, or are the students actually getting better at speaking English? Is it happening?
Yeah, somewhere. Yeah, how are they doing that? Every year we get new students at the university here, and they are more incredible than the previous year's students.
Okay, it's not just me then.
Yeah, so, and I wonder, I think it is the training that Korean teachers have. They go through, if they're going to be teachers, they have good training, and then English teachers have more training to deal with the foreigners they may counterpart with here in Korea, or just good education, I think, has developed more in
A lot of
Korea.
different programs. I mean, that was actually my job before I worked at our current uni. Is I was working at a different uni. I was teaching teachers how to teach English, basically.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So the English teachers, elementary, middle, high school English teachers, Korean English teachers would go back. They'd take a year off of their normal work and basically get more training on how to be a proper English teacher, not just doing the memorization stuff. So it seems like those are becoming more common.
I did a 1 year in an elementary school out in Anyang, and the teachers there, we had a small workshop with our counterpart teachers. Again, in elementary school here, they used to have counterparts. I don't know if they still do, but we had a small workshop. And then, if I remember correctly, they thanked the foreigners and said, thanks, you're finished for this workshop. But the Korean teachers stayed longer and were doing more development work in teaching ESL. So yeah, a lot of emphasis there.
So like in 96, it sounds like, I think this is intuitive, like for a lot of new teachers too, is like the I say, you say approach, right? It just seems like that. It seems like that's the way it should be done. It's just kind of like, okay, everyone copy me, I'll say it. And then you say the sentence. And I think, we have a much communicative approach is a much more sophisticated, I think,
it's also really hard to get an English teaching job in Korea for Koreans these days. Actually, I was just talking to a student last week, 2 weeks ago, very recently, who was telling me that they are going to be graduating soon. And so they're preparing for all of the tests and things that they need to do in order to get their certificate to be an English teacher. Mm-hmm. And what they were telling me about is serious. I mean, there's like a hardcore written test, just to make sure that they've got the English ability. But they've got to do like a whole English teaching, practice, and they've got to have gone through all of these different other things for different certificates and whatnot. So for Koreans to now have that English teaching job is, I'm sure, much more difficult than it was in the past. There's a lot more that they have to work for.
It's being a teacher here is a government job, right? So they have to be certified. Right. They have to go through that test. Yeah. So I've heard that it's quite a notorious test. I have some Korean friends that are now teachers, and they say it's standard procedure to at least fail once in that teacher's exam, and they study a year and take it again. Yeah,
it's not uncommon for like someone in their 30s to like pass it for the first time. It's like, I finally passed it. Now I can start my career, and they've been in limbo for 4 or 5 years or whatever.
Something I actually also learned about that is that they do different tests for different regions of Korea. So if you want to test to be a teacher in Seoul versus Gyeonggi versus Jeju, there's a slightly different test because there's different standards. And so they have to match those.
Yeah. Can we pivot a little bit? Like, I mean, I love that this conversation. I know it's also important for a lot of listeners and stuff. But I mean, I'm looking at you and I'm thinking like my timeline is really similar to yours in some funny ways. Like in the time when you were doing the Peace Corps, I did AmeriCorps. Then I did graduate school before I came back when I came to Korea in 2007, but it's kind of like when you re-arrived. Like I lived in Busan first also.
Okay.
And
Chicago.
I'm also, I went to Loyola. We're all like from the Midwest, me, Jack.
Right.
So,
me, I'm away.
Well,
Southwest.
Not Kev. Yeah. Kevin's the West.
Yeah.
So I guess in my mind, I'm starting to like kind of imprint my own memories onto your story. And I'm starting to think, all right, all this time living abroad, like, okay, we've talked a bit about like the career development and stuff, but what about lifestyle? It's such a radical thing to move to the other hemisphere and spend like the majority of our adult lives now being out here. So I jumped into this conversation. I was a little like late. I heard something about like you were talking about sustainable farming or something. What was I missing there?
Yeah. Something that's just a hobby that's caught my attention and it takes up quite a lot of my time is, sustainable farming is still a good term, but these days, and I think the better way to describe that is regenerative agriculture. So, and doesn't have to be a huge farm, but we can use regenerative practices for small gardens. And it's just the idea behind soil health and therefore food health. Yeah, that's what
So you manage like your own, it's like rooftop gardens, or what is the?
Yeah, in my present apartment on campus here, we have a veranda, and it doesn't look like much. Good that we're not showing pictures because it's not really much at all, but it's just me thinking of, learning all of these things that I post that Jack saw before. It's just me applying them to a small veranda garden and a multitude of big and small, ceramic pots and things like that.
So how did you get into this? I think one of the things that I thought was really interesting coming from Chicago. I had never traveled before I came here, so it was like just smash, and I'm in a new culture. I looked out at all the rooftops and I see so many kimchi pots. Everybody's growing something here, and you're in this urban environment, very urban, dense environment. And it was very impressive to me. I mean, I live in a house now with a little courtyard, but the grandma who lives downstairs, I mean, she's got probably like half of her food's being grown right here in front of my house. It's wild. So yeah. What started your interest in this?
I think it was just trying to grow some tomatoes and peppers, and I wasn't really getting anything. I might have grown 5 mini tomatoes, right? Cherry tomatoes in a season in one bell pepper. So it was good. I was doing something okay, but what is everyone else doing? And I saw the same thing. So many rooftops, and my friend over in another part of the city, she was growing all this kind of pumpkins on her roof. And how are you doing that? And so other people started pointing me in that direction of, well, just watch this video, or just think of the soil. What are you doing with your soil? And that led me down a good rabbit hole, I guess.
One of the reasons that I wanted to have Sean on our show was because in my Facebook feed, his posts are so interesting and they keep popping up, and I keep clicking on them. So Facebook is like, well, you want more of this? I'll give you more, Sean. So I just keep getting a lot of stuff. And I saw you, in one post, you're like making your own granola, like you're making your own peanut butter, and it's all organic. And I'm like, God, I wish I could be like Sean. I'm so lazy. I'm like, Costco Jiffy 2 for, 1+1. It's terrible. It's got hydrogenated, cooking oil in it. I'll be on Lipitor for the rest of my life, with the way I eat. But like when like what Ryan said, like when did you start thinking about like becoming health conscious? You always seemed kind of health conscious to me since I've known you, and I've known you for probably more than 10 years. So
I think that's the other half of that. You mentioned, going to the store and relying on what's available in the store to, cook dinner or make your breakfast and lunch. The idea was I didn't want to buy things in plastic anymore. So gardening, of course, is one way that we can grow stuff that doesn't have plastic around it. And so and it's funny, you talk about my granola and my peanut butter. So I'd go to the market, and I bring my own plastic bags. Then I just keep reusing the plastic bags I have. But I go to the farmer's market or open air market over here near Cheongyangni station, and it's just good. I can buy all my fruits and vegetables there, and my peanuts and walnuts and sunflower seeds that are ready to eat, and all this, they're all shelled. And so from there, I thought, well, this is a good start. How can I continue to not use plastic? And it's a hard principle to live by.
Oh my God. I burn through plastic bags like crazy. Yeah.
Oh geez. And when I go to the market, they are so quick when I ask for, I'll have 1 kilo of this or these apples. They are so quick to pull the plastic bag off their rack and bag it up. And I have to always, and they know me even. They probably recognize me. Here's this guy on his bike.
Oh, it's the no plastic guy. Okay. Yeah, he comes again. Yeah.
And I have to say, I have to hold my bag up in front of them and say, I'll take these apples and I'll put them in here, right? And of course, I'm speaking Korean as best as I can. And I'm catching them earlier these days with, here's my plastic bag, I'm going to put these in here, and they're cool with it. And it's interesting, some even say, wow, you're such a good person or a good boy. Some people say it there, right? So funny. Yeah, but that's part of the whole thing of me just starting to grow stuff. And then it led into, well, why does my soil look so sandy? It looks more like dirt and not really soil. So what can I do with that? Trying to compost. Korea has a great system of collecting food garbage, and I really don't know where that goes, but I save some banana peels and I cook my own eggshells, for example, so I can crush them and add them to my soil. But this kind of thing just keeps me thinking, what else could we all do? And then leading into things that Jack has seen on Facebook. Well, I like the conversation, so maybe I can get my nieces and nephews to think about, if not act yet. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Have you joined any groups or anything? Or is this a I'm sure there are communities of people. There's a community here in Korea that probably are also thinking like you. Even Kevin's wife, I know you guys are careful about plastic.
We're great. Like, actually, we often, they put the apples in the bag, and we often just tell them, like, no, we're okay. And they'll take it out again and put it into our shopping bag. I always carry a shopping bag with me wherever I go
I'd say it's probably a catching idea. I mean, we never use plastic. I'm thinking of like my friends, even if you're walking in, even if you're going to pick up quite a few things, like, I mean, people just stick it in their pockets now. Like, it's pretty common. I just got back from a bike trip. We biked down to Yeoju and back. And so, you're grabbing a lot of stuff. It's pretty, and you're on the bike. It's pretty common. You grab a kimbap or whatever, they reach for the plastic. And you don't really have a lot of pockets on you because you're biking, but your bike does, but your bike is over there. So you end up doing like this thing, like you're cradling everything in your arms, and like the person stacks it on you as you walk away. But I mean, what's the big deal? You get to your bike and then you just kind of, dump it on the bike.
Right.
And it works.
Yeah. I wonder that, going back, you were talking about like communities for these. I wonder what kind of, because there definitely are farming communities. I mean, I know that our university, like there's a student club for farming, for example. Like, the students will get in and they manage their own little plot. I'm not sure. I know it's in the city, or I believe it's in the city. So there is like those kind of things for some students to get involved in. But at the same time, like you were talking about earlier, you go up to your roof and just look around, and everyone is doing their own little thing. And so I think it's an interesting thing in Korea where we've got, farming communities where people want to learn, but then at the same time, there's just a bunch of people just doing it solo as well here for rooftop farming and things like that.
Yeah, I've seen when I run or ride my bike around the city, all those small streams, they all have whether government provided plots, where the city provided plots they're renting. Or, I don't know how they assign those allotments, but if it's not that, then it's something near someone's house if they have a yard or a rooftop. So it's amazing what they're growing there too. It's just incredible to have so much food.
It really is. It's more than just tomatoes. Like, people are growing like proper, like, like you were saying, like pumpkins and things. Like, big.
My alley next to the house, it's like this kind of stinky favela looking alley, and there's like a fence there, and it's all pumpkins being grown on it. Like, why not? I love it. I love it.
I love the pumpkins. Yeah.
I had a question for you, Sean. One thing that just recently, in the last 2 years, I've moved to this neighborhood. Just the last 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I'm in Huam-dong. It's next to Seoul Station. It's an old neighborhood, and I don't know why, but my market seems to have a lot of mushrooms, and I've liked mushrooms. They're fine, but I think I've eaten more mushrooms in the last 2 years than my entire life. I've just like jumped into I'm on the mushroom train, and I've realized how delicious they are, how much they're very cheap as far as a food, so very economic. Have you thought of growing mushrooms at all? Because I feel like there's a huge category of mushrooms that are missing here that could be grown here.
I haven't thought of that as one of my staple foods that I'm trying to grow. I don't know if I have the right conditions. Do you think in the dark and growing in manure or whatever? I don't have all of that. But it is an idea. I think in Korea, they have what they use everywhere in the world for growing mushrooms, those plugs they put into the pine log, right? Yeah, that I would like to try if I had the right conditions and I could keep it wet.
I know when another thing, again, timelines being similar, I lived in the Pacific Northwest also. And when I was there was a company, I'm sure they're still around, but they would sell mushroom kits. I remember I bought a bunch, it's like around the millennium, and I mailed them to my family in Wisconsin. They were pretty simple, and I could see them being functional for small apartments here. They were like baskets that you would hang in your bathroom, just anywhere that's a little bit humid. And as long as you showered every day, or if you just want to mist it, I bought it as kind of like a novelty thing for my family. I was like, I'm mailing you mushrooms. And they ended up loving it. My sister got like 2 or 3 flushes off of like one of them. They grew like oysters, I think lion's mane. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
they all were. But I don't see anybody producing that kind of stuff here. So people like you that are excited about, doing this kind of stuff, I want to just throw it your way, like, because I would like to buy mushrooms. Yeah.
Now you've got me thinking. If I could, I in my apartment here, I have 2 bathrooms. One's en suite for my master bedroom, right, and another one half bathroom. So I have 2 places I could potentially keep sort of wet and from the shower, mist them and close the doors and keep them in.
Nice. I've seeded the idea. I'm gonna
get it's going to grow now. It's got me thinking. I usually think. So another impetus of why I'm doing, why do I post all this stuff about regenerative farming is, as Earth stays the same size, but there are more people and we're living in these smaller places, how can we grow enough food? And it's food security and food sovereignty is huge for me too. So how can small families in a small apartment grow enough food to offset their expense of going to the market, or even knowing they have nutrient-rich homegrown food, right? So now the mushrooms, oh gosh, what potential.
This salad is getting even better every minute here. Sean, what are you growing? Oh, sorry, Ryan. What are you growing on your veranda right now? Like, what is your you said you started with like a kind of sad 3 cherry tomatoes and in a kind of Charlie Brown Christmas tree situation there. What do you got now, like as far as vegetables?
So actually we call them volunteer plants. Some seeds that I had in my soil somehow from composting. I've got some smaller, again, cherry tomatoes. I have a large pepper plant that's not flowered and doesn't have any fruit on it yet, but it's coming. And then carrots, eggplant, and I've got some heavy composted soil that hasn't completed yet. And I hear that's good for pumpkins and squash. So I'll put some pumpkins and squash there soon. Don't take my word for it. I'm not a soil scientist, everyone. Just just trying things on my veranda. Yeah. So that's good. You mentioned also, while it's on my mind, you asked about groups that I'm part of here. I don't really contribute much, but I am in envy. If I have envy in my life, it's these people in gardening in the ROK. That's a Facebook group. And they live in Gangwon-do, so they have, every time they show their plot, it's like, so lucky, right? It's so
there's incredible. There's like a waterfall kind of,
mountains in the background,
koi fish pond,
right.
The mounds of radishes and all these things they have, and it's really quite amazing. So there are people, not in the city doing some quite lovely things. That's incredible. Yeah.
So and I know. So we talked about your urban farming hobby and regenerative practice. I just had one more thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because you mentioned quite often about meat. The idea that eating meat is not necessarily, like, going vegetarian or vegan is not the answer or the solution. And could you explain that? Because I know you've done a lot of research about that. And Korea is such a meat heavy, you know what I mean? Like this idea that, you shouldn't eat that samgyeopsal, or you shouldn't, go to the Galbi restaurant or whatever.
Yeah, this is hard. I like meat. I'm not vegetarian. I'll eat just about anything. And Korea is good for that, right? I used to not enjoy samgyeopsal, but now I don't push back too much if friends want to go eat there after a Friday night or something.
Is it because of the like the fat or just
yeah?
Okay. It's not an ideological thing. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Not my
bacon,
ethics.
That's why it's good.
Yeah, it's great, right? Bacon. Fatty and juicy. My ethics, even though I eat most of my diet, meaning food intake, is vegetarian, just because we need to eat more vegetables, just a healthy way to go. But meat is definitely part of a healthy diet. And we don't want to get into there maybe about diets, but for the soil, meat is essential. Pigs and cows and chickens are an essential part of soil health. And to think of just principles of soil health, thinking that we should always keep the soil covered, keep the ground covered. And that means even after you've harvested, we shouldn't disturb the soil. We should cut at the ground level, cut off our crop, unless it's a root crop that we're pulling out of the ground. Mm-hmm. But generally, if we can keep the roots in the soil, living especially, but even dead roots are part of the carbon cycle of soil. What are we doing when we compost? We are, dead roots become compost for the soil. So that's great if we can leave that in there. And what happens when animals come across there? They're eating grass, they're pecking at the bugs, and doing what animals do. And they grow up on healthy soil. We get healthy meat from them, and it's doing regenerative agriculture or following these practices of integrating animals and keeping them rotating around a certain area. If you have a big enough farm to do that rotation, these animals will live a happy life in no 1 second maybe of, I'd hate to say it, pain and after their.
But what you're
able to find
is
much. Have you been able to find much like organic or sustainably farmed meat here in Korea?
I don't look for it. I usually would maybe pick up Yuginon organic eggs. I'm big on eggs.
We've seen those a lot. Those are somewhat common, at least.
Yeah, and I pay the extra just to see if they really look different than the other eggs I usually buy, right? And for the most part, they look a little bit better and stronger. But
the yolks are often a different color as well.
Right. Yeah, they don't run across the pan so much, right? It's just a good...
Yeah, we often get the same eggs. I know.
Yeah, the idea for if we can integrate animals, it's just part of the process. And thinking regenerative agriculture or something called permaculture, right? They have similar ideas, and they think permaculture looks towards nature. Imitate nature, and you might be into some good practices, right? So animals are in nature, animals are grazing and moving on, or they're chased by something and they're moving around, and things can grow back. And animals leave their manure as they move along, and this is all good to integrate. But
I was just wondering if you'd be able to find it. I know that there was, I wonder if it's still there. There was a kind of like an organic supermarket in our neighborhood, actually, which is kind of cool because in Korea, I mean, I remember when I first got here, the organic section in the supermarket was like one shelf, basically. And it slowly got bigger to like a section. And then there was an entire supermarket, and they had like organic meats and things like that. But that supermarket was a bit strange. We didn't go there very often because even the supermarket was like a membership. And we didn't go often enough. We're like, we don't want to pay a membership just to buy good meat. Like for us, we don't do a ton of meat at home either. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's becoming available, I guess.
Because I don't go to the major supermarkets so often. I don't know about those sections. If they're friends tell me that when they go, there is a growing, even organic vegetable section that is growing. And I guess that's good, relying on nothing else except being organic and buying organic. That's supposed to mean no pesticides, no fungicides, right? No herbicides.
I wonder what it means in Korea. That's something that would be interesting to look into, because in America, the organic label means one thing, and I assume it means something similar in Korea, but I haven't looked into like legally what what is required.
I feel like the labeling, like I try to go towards those sort of things. From the market, maybe I'll even ask, where are these from? It's nice to know if your fruits and vegetables are coming at least from Korea or if they're coming from abroad, and you can kind of find out how they're being grown. But one of the things that for me, I find there's it's experience. Like I just enjoy having a little intimacy with the things I'm eating. I think it enhances your life quality. Rich or poor, it doesn't matter. Like just I don't know, that level of intimacy in growing even just the most simple small garden. Like we grow a few things here, but it just gives you a different feeling for what you eat. Like those giant leeks that we get here, like the huge freaking leeks, they're massive. If you buy a bunch of those, it's like $1, right? They're basically free food. It's so cheap. We'll take those, chop them up, and put them in a baggie in the freezer because you just use them to toss into soups and stuff or sauces and whatever. But then the roots, you can just pop those in a pot. They grow so fast. I was just joking to my sister. It's like the cheat code for free onions. Like you just put them in a pot, put them outside, and a week later, you got more leeks. Week later,
vegetable
you can go pretty far before they're exhausted. We had the same ones. I grew them just behind me on that shelf through the winter. So, but it's funny, but it also just gives you kind of an intimacy with what you're putting in your body. And I don't know, I think it's a quality of life thing that, again, it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor or, you're doing it like for economic reasons. I mean, I can afford dollar onions, but it's I think it enhances your life quality.
Yeah, something cool about just you can do that with carrots or other things too that grow a little bit. And I mean, even carrot greens, usually we chop them off and throw them away or they go away, but I eat everything I can. So even these onions, if they're growing just a little bit, that's definitely something I don't have to buy. And it's something
you do the carrot greens. That was something I just saw for the first time. My father-in-law last year, 2 years ago, suddenly like we live in the same kind of small apartment building. Like we're upstairs and my in-laws are just downstairs. Suddenly like all through the stairwells and in their apartment, there's just small plates of like the top of the carrot cut off, slowly growing green stuff. And it's just like everywhere. There's like a plate of carrots here, a plate of carrots here, a plate of carrots here, just growing the little green stuff. I was like, what the hell are you growing? He's like, oh, we can eat it. I was like, cool. I had no idea that that's a thing.
Carrot greens, and I don't know, some people say you wait long enough and the carrot comes out of there, but I've never gotten that far.
No, I didn't see that, but the green was getting bigger and bigger. They were turning into little mini bushes just coming from that. It was really surprising.
I don't think I've heard of this before, carrot greens. Yeah. So Sean, would you say since you started, toiling in the soil, like this has become part of your lifestyle, does it make you happier? I mean, is there something like I think Ryan was kind of hinting towards this. Is there like a therapeutic element to it, a meditative element to it?
Outside of just growing your own food, just beside that idea is just, it doesn't take much time each day. And I'm doing something that it smells good. Good soil just smells good. And I don't know. I guess it's quality of life that I can feel I'm doing something for me, but I'm not relying on something else somewhere else. And
do you feel better, like health wise? Do you feel better than maybe you did in the past, just because you're sustaining yourself on a diet of your own, grown food?
Yeah, I think mentally, sure. There's could I say an improvement in my mental health, just saying this is good. But I think that comes with any hobby though. And I'd like to say it's connected to soil and me just
you do seem sharper than when I first met you. No, I'm just joking.
That's
great. I think I'd be remiss here because Ryan is a huge biker and Korea has these wonderful bike trails. Sean, you're also a big bike trip guy as well, right?
Right. What's today? So Friday, I rode with my friend to Songtan. He wanted to go there. So that was 80K there, I guess. And just yesterday morning, I rode back and another 80K. And the wind was blowing in my face both directions, right?
Was this, for me, this was like my first big ride of the season. And I've been trying to run like through the winter and stuff, but I've been off my bike for distance travel until this trip I just took Thursday, Friday. So was this your first out, or are you like more consistent?
Maybe a little more consistent. Last year I rode my first time Seoul to Busan, and
Nice.
then took the bus back. Slept on the bus on the back way. But yeah, you said you went to Yeoju, just over here, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So my friends and I will go to Yeoju once and come back. We'll spend a night there and come back. Or we've gone to Chuncheon to grab some dak galbi and just come back. And it's great. The Korea's bike paths. I think my family and friends are either tired of listening to me about how awesome the bike paths are, or they're like telling their town hall that we need more bike paths in America. So,
yeah. I lived here for years. I had no idea. I had a coworker friend. He just kept pushing me. He said, you gotta get on the bike paths. And I sold my bike when I left Chicago, and I didn't buy one when I came here. I just didn't care about biking at all. I used it for commuting in Chicago, and I didn't need it here. And he's a biker, and he liked to do bike trips. And he's like, you got to try it. You got to try it. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. So I went to the bike store. I bought a $100 bicycle, and I was blown away. I had no idea how nice the trails are, how easy they are. I'm going to start talking. I got to shut up.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm right there with you, because when my friends and I ride, they engineer the bike paths just like a main highway here, main expressway. When the asphalt meets a bridge, it's just a smooth transition. It's just incredible. And then you get to ride around the country and see what different people are doing. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Do you have now you're also a hiker as well. If you had to choose, like, Sophie's choice here, biking or hiking, which, I know it's a tough one.
I would probably choose hiking. It's less equipment, and more people might be able to enjoy. It's being out there, and biking. I ride up next to my partner and say a few things, but we can't ride side by side the whole time. But hiking, you can sort of do that and make your own pace up the mountain. Yeah, so probably have to lean towards hiking. And Korea, anywhere you go, it's going to be a mountain or hill somewhere.
Yeah, that's something we've mentioned as well. Like how, biking is super easy, but in Korea, like even in the city here, you can just hop on the subway, and within, probably 30 minutes or maximum an hour, you're next to some epic mountain where you get off the subway and just start hiking.
Yeah, and some of my friends, we've done both. One of the guys is more robust than I am. He's a little bit younger and healthier, and he says, today or tomorrow, let's go. We're going to bike to that mountain, hike, and then come, bike home. And we go for it. Let's do it. But it's tough.
Nice.
Yeah.
There you go. So, there is more to Korea than just, hanging out downtown or, Hongdae, Itaewon, that kind of thing. We love to hear the other perspective. And I think you kind of epitomize that in a way where you've, now, are you, if we project ourselves into the future a little bit here as we wrap up the podcast, do you plan to stay here? Is Korea your, kind of forever home? Is this your, your place?
That's tough. It's, I've tried to integrate myself as much as I can. I'm not married, so there's not that family connection here kind of feeling, but I try not to just be the person filling a bar stool. I want to be out. And so definitely it feels like my home. The other side of that is I always, every 3 years, as I re-sign a contract, I think I need to go home, but how do I get home and make that transition back to the States? Because I want for the really only major reason is one, family, and another, just to go outside and dig a hole if I want to. But here I can't do that, right? I don't have that right because I don't own that soil or that park outside. So that's something I weigh every time, every other year. So I think, can I go home and still maintain my safety and security and do the things I want? But yeah, Korea is wonderful. I came back because of how safe and good it is to live here. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that's great. I think we probably all feel the same way, and except for digging the hole thing. I'm okay without digging the hole, but
okay.
Yeah.
I dig some holes. That sounds good.
That's just
but
an example
of
setting up a swing set. You can do what you want if you have your plot back home somewhere, but and that's just a basic example.
You can have that awesome allotment with the little waterfall and the koi pond, and
yeah. There's a whole nother segment I'll have to talk to you guys after, talking about houses and house design and things and what's wrong with the world with architecture.
Oh man, well that sounds like a perfect part 2, because this was fantastic. Sean, we really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
We just started talking about so many topics as well. There's a lot more we could get into, but
yeah, I know. I just feel like we scratched the surface of a few things, but there's always another chance, another bite at the apple. So nice. I'm just going to say goodbye to our listeners here. Everybody, you guys know where to find us. You can go to our website, thesoulpatch.com. It's a one-stop shop for streaming the episodes. You can download it on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify. If you could do us a huge favor and leave us a review in Apple Podcasts, that will really help us out. You can go to our YouTube channel and you can listen to the show there. And if you have it in your hearts to smash that Patreon button, you can buy us a cup of coffee, and that money will go towards producing the show so that we can bring a new episode to you every week. So with that, we'll say goodbye. Sean, thanks again. And we'll see you next week on the patch. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Have a great day.
I'd like to pay a couple respects to the people that made me what I am today. Nothing here.
It's all my love. It's all my love.
The quiet man.
It's all my love. It's all my love.
Dopamine. Jim.
It's all my love. It's all my love. It's all my love.
The brain.
It's all my love. It's all my love.
Hey, Bobby.
Let the bass go.
Call me an eater, call me a dominant.